Welcome, I'm Senator Michelle McManus, and thank you for tuning in with In Touch with Northern Michigan. Today's guest is Ron Olson, and he's the Director of Parks and Recreation Division at the Michigan DNR. And we're going to speak with him a little bit on our parks and our park service. Welcome, Ron. How are you today?
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yep, it's great to be able to talk a little bit about our parks as summer is coming and certainly spring's here finally. But why don't we just start by letting you tell us a little bit about your background and then what you do with the Michigan Department of Resources.
Okay, well, I came to the DNR, to the Parks and Recreation Division in 2005 in January, so I've been here just a little less than 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was the Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and also was Associate City Administrator and filled in a couple times as the interim City Administrator.
So why go from, city government or city operation on parks to state government?
Well, I was drifting into more city management sort of things than Parks and Recreation, and decided that it was probably time to get back to what I like the most, and that's Parks and Recreation. And I looked around, and this opportunity was there, and applied, and here I am. But so it kind of was a chance to rejuvenate things because I had worked there for over 20 years. So, and then prior to that, I worked in Maryland, and then some in Indiana and Minnesota is my home, and I worked there for a while for a regional park system there.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about your responsibilities with the DNR. What exactly are the things that you're responsible for doing?
Well, I'm responsible for all the state parks, the recreation areas, of which there are 97 of them in the state. Wow. Also, all the boating programs. We have 16 harbors that we operate, and then we have over 1,100 boating facilities that include obviously boating access sites and the like. Then we have some 63 grant and aid harbors that we work with through our waterways program that we partner with 63 local governments to ensure funding and other support for their harbors and operations. In the 97 state parks, we also have 5 major trails. That is an example, the White Pine Trail and so forth.
I was going to ask, 97 state parks, is that right?
That's right.
That's a lot. I didn't know we had that many, and these are small, medium, large.
Yeah, there are some that are small and some that go to the largest at Porcupine Mountains, which is over 65,000 acres, to down to actually tricentennial state parks, evolving right now, and that's 31 acres, so it's runs the gamut.
So my district is 11 counties. I kind of have a unique district. I have some lake shore, I have some inland, I have some wonderful parks like over in the Ross Common area. I live up in Leelanau County, so I encompass a little bit of the Sleeping Bear Dunes. Obviously that's a national park, but I assume that you work in collaboration with those national parks too, don't you?
Right. As a matter of fact, just 2 weeks ago we met with superintendent and assistant and their chief planner to talk about a new updated plan that they have going forward for the Sleeping Bear Dunes. So we were able to learn about what they had in mind and then some of the scenarios that they were discussing to provide some input and things that they were in process of engaging with the public to provide input for the future vision and direction.
And I may be incorrect here, but the lighthouses, some of them, are they on state parks?
Yes, we have a number of them.
Do you manage the lighthouses too? Because that's a big deal for us. When we go to some destination in Michigan, we always try to hit a lighthouse.
We basically, the majority of the lighthouses we have are in partnerships with restoration groups, historic groups, or otherwise. We partner with history, arts, and libraries on that front. And so the ones that have active museum-type experiences, those are done through volunteers and or some nonprofit groups that work cooperatively with us. But they're encased within the many of the state parks.
Now, of these 97 state parks, will it ever grow? Will there be more or less? I mean, is there any...
Well, it's a good question. Right now, there's discussions, for example, up near Alpena, there's a piece of forest land called Rockport, and it's a couple thousand acres of unique geological land, and there's discussions going on about whether that should become another state park. And there's been discussions, of course, as you probably know, about the Big Rock property up along the lake north of Charlevoix, and whether or not that ever gets acquired, who knows. But there is discussions about trying to ensure that there is protected areas that are unique as they come available, or, like I said, the Rockport, it's really not suited as a state forest, but it would be better suited as a park amenity. So, but I think those will be very thoughtfully and carefully looked at as we go forward. And they'll have to have good solid reasons, and we'll have to have a good business plan to be able to.
So there's an actual method for a community wanting a state park. There's public hearings and things like that.
Oh yes, in fact, at Alpena, we had a public meeting with our new state advisory state park. It's Michigan State Parks Committee, and they met and we had a public hearing. Now we have a local advisory group that's going to be meeting, and we're going to be exploring planning, but that'll take some time to sort things out. So it's nothing immediate, but it's a very deliberate process.
Sure. Now the other thing that always comes up when I'm talking to different people about our parks, state land, is how it's purchased. Because in many cases, the state of Michigan does purchase that land. In some cases, the land is reverted back because it was tax reverted. In other times, it's swamp, and stuff like that. Maybe just clarify how, some of those 97 parks, what methods were they given or sold to the state? How does that work?
Well, basically, in terms of, I'll just talk about the parks that we have and then go to the larger.
Sure, yeah.
We have many parks that have inholdings, that land that other people owned as the land is amassed around, whether they be tax reverted, whether some of the land is bought or donated back many years ago. And the land right now is we have a fund that's put together where dollars, if land is sold, because there is some land that gets sold, money goes into there. Also, if we get grants from the trust fund or any federal grants, the money would pass through that particular fund, and then we wait for loaners that are interested in selling their property, and then we go and try to negotiate and have the land appraised and try to purchase them, for fair market value. So it's basically trying to amass the land and deal with infills. Now, the land review process has identified lands of our maximum boundaries of the property, which changes it, meaning to round off the boundary as opposed to the inholdings. And we've got those defined now. And those were adopted by the Natural Resource Commission in 2003 and 4. So we're requesting to try to round out the boundaries. Then as you go forward, for example, the only example I can think of is Big Rock, which is a piece of land that was owned by the Consumers Power, and that would have to be an acquisition. And right now there's discussions going on about using some federal grants and potentially the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund. And of course, in the Rockport circumstance, the land's already owned by the state, and that came to us from a settlement due to some some damage that was caused by a company, and that land was bought some years ago as part of the settlement. And then the third method is the city of Detroit is working with us in Tricentennial, and we're long-term leasing that land from them. So that's basically how it works, but certainly the public process and the due diligence between the Park Committee and the Natural Resource Commission is very